You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. What's up, dudes and dudettes? Welcome back to Just a Dude podcast. I'm your host, Nathan, just a regular guy trying to figure life out. Today, we've got a cool guest, James Taylor from TBC Enterprises. This dude's all about using acting skills to level up your real life. Plus, he's written a book called All Your Best Selves. We're diving into how acting isn't just for Hollywood, it's for crushing it at life. Let's get into it. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. Would you like to let the listeners know a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Former Marine. I've been in acting since about 2003. 2008 is kind of when I tripped over this idea and kind of been developing it since, because I really didn't understand what I had. It stems from my lifestyle, but in 2008 had a moment that it just made me see there was something a little more to acting than it was. And then when I got around to 2021, well, actually before that, I started teaching it, but not acting for just acting's sake. I was teaching it to help kids try to develop their emotions better, try to understand what the way their thoughts worked a little better. Then I wrote a book about it in 2021, and then I started doing pod match interviews like this February. And it was like maybe
Nice.
2 or 3 podcasts because the thing is, I really didn't have a lot of people to talk about. Podcasts allowed to talk about it. And it was like 2 or 3 podcasts in that I realized what I'm really talking about is a systemic way to teach mental and emotional literacy. And I feel like that's the profound thing here, because it's 2 new forms of literacy that we can give to humanity. And I think that's profound because, like, when we gave the world written literacy, changed the world. We gave the world new mathematical literacy, changed the world. So why wouldn't it change the world if we gave people mental and emotional literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I think we need more today than we probably have ever needed in our history of, being human beings, right, Jim?
I absolutely agree. I feel like we're tearing ourselves apart as a country right now because the left and right are 2 sides of the same coin, but we don't see it. We think they're both on our side, respectively, whatever side you're on. Where I'm like, no, that's the rich just taken from the poor, and we can't see it yet.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, this is, I cover politics a little bit here and there, and I tend to lean towards the right, which is just my upbringing, Jim. But you're absolutely right. I sit here and I talk to people all the time, and I say, it's always left and right. And it used to be, I remember growing up, I'm a little bit older and I'm 43, but I remember growing up, there was always left and right and, left versus right. But at some point, they always seem to come together and at least do something, right? Bipartisan bill, something like that. But as we've gone through the years, and I'd say probably since 2016, it's been probably the worst. We've seen more of that division than we've ever seen before. And the truth is, we all breathe the same air. We all eat the same food, and we're all human beings at the end of it. And it's like, yeah, you're right. We need to wake up and kind of realize we need to take our country back a little bit,
Absolutely. Well, I feel like, again, this is the issue for me. I feel if we want to fix America, we have to treat every political office from county comptroller to president of the United States like jury duty. It sucks, but you have to do it. No more 30 years. No, you get one shot. One term is all you need. If we can't have a country where citizens can step up for one term, do the job, and get out, we're making a mistake, because it should be about how we take care of each other, not how we take care of the rich. But we're not in a culture war. We're in a class war. We just don't see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at some of these politicians, and they're on both sides too, left and right. Specifically, when you look at Senate and Congress, right? Those are the 2 big things nationally, and then even locally, we see people, in the state Senate, state, whatever state legislature that have been there for 20, 30 years, and it's like, listen. No offense, but after 30 years, it's probably time, there's a reason we say retirement age is like 65, and it's like, because you're supposed to enjoy those years and let somebody else move up, and start doing things. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got people that are in there. They've had too much power. They got a good taste of it, and now they don't want to give it up.
No, absolutely. And it's like, that's on us. But we're not at the point where we understand that yet, because we're lost in the sauce, really, No one ever taught us how to be people. So now we're running around like a chicken with our head cut off, because we don't know what direction to move in. And I feel
exactly
like these tools and techniques will assist us in making those better choices.
Yeah. So, and I know for you, and you already mentioned it, but you were a Marine Corps veteran and you turned actor into life guru. So how did that, I'm just curious, and for our listeners, how did that transition happen? for you? Because obviously from Marine Corps to Life Guru, now I know because I was in law enforcement. I wasn't in, the military service, but I was in law enforcement, so it's similar. So I can understand how Marine Corps translates into Life Guru. But, if you want to give the listeners a little bit of story of how you did that transition, that'd be awesome.
Actually, it goes back a lot further. People think it comes from the Marine Corps, but it goes all the way back when I was 4 years old. When I was 4 years old, my parents took me to a midnight mass. I was in Jersey at the time, Jersey boy. But for whatever reason, the concept of eternity just clicked, and it freaked me out because I realized there's no end. There could be no middle. If there's no middle, it's just a perpetual beginning. So 10,000 eons from now, I'm still going to exist, and it's still going to be the beginning of my existence. And what freaked me out was the fact is, what do you do with eternity once you've done everything many times over? So it was boredom that freaked me out. So I kind of regressed back into my mind, and I started instinctively treating it like a computer. I started creating programs, and my first 2 programs that I created, I called my suits and bubbles. My suits were just different versions of me. Every time I met someone, I would actively listen to them and draw out everything I could mentally and emotionally from them and recreate them as a version of myself inside of me. My bubbles were essentially like the holodeck in the Star Trek universe. It could be anytime, any place, anywhere. And what I didn't realize at the time, what I essentially was doing was giving myself a proving ground in my mind. So anytime I walked into a situation, I can go into my mind and rework that situation, any different version I wanted to be in any different circumstances. So it allowed me to think my way through it. And that carried me through my life. That's how I grew and developed. My first touch for acting was in freshman in high school. Got it picked. I didn't really pick up my electives, and I got put into theater 1. It only lasted like 6 weeks. I got kicked out and put into ROTC after the first 6 weeks. Yeah, but I didn't.
Yeah, so it wasn't a fit at that time, huh?
Well, it wasn't.
Not at that point in your life.
I don't know if it was so much a fit. It was the teacher. I clashed heads with the teacher.
Yeah, that happens.
He didn't like my style, and I didn't know I had a style. So it just kind of worked that way. But after I graduated high school, enlisted in the Marines, did that for 5 years, 1 reserve, got out. And it was 2003 when I accidentally got into acting. It was just after I got out of the Corps, I moved back to Alabama, and I was working in Huntsville, Alabama at a Lone Star Steakhouse. Mm-hmm. I just remember I was rolling silverware. I was a server, and there was a couple of chicks rolling silverware on the other side. And I remember one was going on about her voice lessons, how difficult they were. And I was a young, dumb honorary Marine. I was ball breaking. I'm like, come on, man, voice lessons, really? Bro, when you want to hear about hard, I'll tell you about hard, chick. And I just remember she popped off. She took it personal. She got him. She's like, oh, I bet you couldn't do 3 weeks, soldier boy. And I took, I took it back, and I was like, all right, cool. I can do this. And I was like, I'll take 6 weeks. I'll show you. So I found a voice coach in Huntsville, and I was going to take 6 weeks, but after the first class, I kind of forgot about the challenge or whatever it was. And I was just fascinated by how this gentleman could make me sound and how he connected emotions to the music. And it was just something that really captivated me. And then from there, he got me into a chorus that got me into a musical. And then from there, I just started steamrolling. My first 2 years, I picked up about 30 different credits. That propelled me to move to New York. I went to New York for 2 years. Worked up there. I ended in writing, producing, and performing my own play called 2 Tablespoons of Crazy. And yeah, that got me noticed by this producer. And it was basically like, bro, look at this kid. He had no idea what he's doing. And because that was the thing. It's like when I wrote the first line of the play to closing night, like 5 months had passed. And I'm like, how did you do that fast?
Wow. Yeah, that's super quick.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I didn't know I couldn't. I didn't know what I was doing. it was a step in front.
Yeah, you just let it go.
Yeah. So I didn't have any of the boundary or any of the bars to stop me. I just kept pressing through. And then that got me to my first SAG role in a film called Hunger. And that was the poignant part because this was in 2008 now. 2007, 2008, I think December 2007. But either way, I was playing opposite Lyndon Ashby. He was, I don't know if you saw the 1990 Mortal Kombat film.
Yeah.
He played Johnny Cage.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was stoked because I'm sitting here acting opposite Johnny Cage, man. I was like, badass. I just remember we were doing a scene. Because the way it worked, we were both in the scene, but he was being filmed at the moment, not me. I was off camera. Well, when they yelled cut, the director, Lyndon, reached over and shook my hand like I pulled his kid out of a fire, and I couldn't get it. I didn't understand what happened at first, but he was just super thankful. And it wasn't for like maybe several weeks later after we didn't wrap filming that I realized what had happened. And essentially in moments like that, when you have one camera on screen and one actor off screen, the one off screen is kind of just going through the motions. He's not delivering his lines with intent, and he's not there present in the moment. And in that moment, even though I wasn't in the character Alex, because of my lifestyle and the way I grew up, I was always present in the moment. So when I delivered my lines, I gave him my best work. And that's what he appreciated, because me giving my best work, even though I was off camera, makes him look better because he has something more to react to. And that's when I realized there's something more to this. So that's when I jumped into starting teaching it through like the school system in Athens, Alabama. I taught like four or five classes across like 15 hours a week. And that propelled me. I did it for a while, like a year. And then after that, they wanted me to come back, but they didn't pay me for the first year, and they didn't want to pay me for the next year. And I was like,
of course,
I did the first year free. I can't keep doing it free.
Yeah. At some point, you got to make a little bit of money, right?
So I left, and then I kept pursuing the idea, and that's when I started writing the book, All Your Best Selves. And then from there, got into podcasting and kind of brought me to here.
Yeah.
So it was a roundabout way, but it was kind of always leading somewhere. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, but that's wild. I mean, that you essentially picked up acting, right, on a bet, is what it seems like. Someone said, well, I bet you can't last. And you're like, I'll show you. And you literally did, but you went to that, from being a young kid and then going into the Marine Corps, getting out, teaching regular dudes how to act their way through life. So, I mean, that's awesome. But then you built TBC Enterprises, right? So can you tell us a little bit about TBC Enterprises?
It's basically just a project. TBC Enterprise is the name because I don't like taking things seriously. And that name came from what happened in the Marine Corps. We kind of had a little social club called the TBC, and it was the Tan and Buff Club. And then it kind of evolved into the Tan and Buff Corps. And then when I got out, I was like coming up with a name for a company. I was like, man, I want to go back to that because it was just a great time in my life. That's where TBC Enterprises came from. And then honestly, it's an art-centric company where I'm just doing a lot of different things, where I'm trying to find something that'll stick. Because the problem is I feel like all these things that I'm doing, well, not all of them, but the poignant ones, I pulled them out of the future. I don't feel like we should have been here. Like this mental and emotional literacy, we're on the cusp of it, but I feel like it's not something that someone like me should have pulled out. I just tripped over it. And that's what I started developing it. Now I'm just trying to see what I can do with it, because I'm not a business person. I don't really want to be. I recognize the ideas in my head are important, and this is the only way I can figure out how to manifest them into something real.
Yeah, I love that. And what would you say and I know you said you're not a business person, but you're trying to get, your ideas and stuff out there. But what would you say your main mission is behind TBC Enterprises, or what you do essentially?
Basically developing people, because developing people through art would be the simplest way, because art allows us to see life in a different way. Because in the world we have now, it's gotten very just A leads to B leads to C. Because the way the education system works, it's designed to make us all into the same person, essentially. We all learn the same things, we believe the same things, and granted, there's different variations. It's like with Christianity, there's so many different denominations, but it's still Christianity. You know what I mean?
And it still comes from the same basis.
Yes. Yeah. Same thing with business. I mean, there's different ways to look at it, but it's all kind of like the same business corporate structure. People on the top, they get everything. People on the bottom just kind of suck it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of where that point where I'm saying, no, we can be so much more, but we have to learn to develop ourselves in different ways, because if we do, we can grow ourselves into our own CEO. We can grow ourselves into our own teacher, our own philosopher, all these versions of us are inside of ourselves. Because I'm a firm believer that, that theory of multiple universes, there's different versions of you everywhere. Well, essentially what I did was I took all those different versions of me out in the ether and pulled them all and brought them in here. So now I can step in and out of different versions of myself who've experienced different things, who've lived different lives, but they've lived them in here. But it's still, even though it's in an imaginative, I'm still learning real things from them. So I'm growing and developing myself in a multitude of different ways. And it's like most times, like every job I've ever had, within a few weeks to a few months, I rise to one of the top 3 employees, because I'm capable of learning anything and developing myself in any direction, where most people have those blinders or those walls, boundaries or whatever that stop them because, oh, that's not me. I can't do that. Where I'm just like, no, what can I do? How do I grow into this? So it gives me freedom.
And I think a lot of people too, they'll sit there and say, well, Jim, I'm not a person that likes to get out and do things. And, so I don't know how this would fit for me, but I can this is one thing that I'll tell our listeners that, to think about, because a lot of us, we box ourselves into these corners where we, while we're trying to be humble, maybe we're too humble, right? And we don't give that positive energy to ourselves. But I tell everybody, look at this, look at how you are. Let's say you go to a job, right? And you work. You're one way there, but then look at how you are when you're at home, right? Because you let everything go. You let the flags fly. You let everything go. You're in your own privacy. So that, to me, and what the point of that is to tell people that, yes, you can decide who you are, and you don't have to just live with who you've been for, however many years. Even for me, 43 years, it's still, I still got time for change. I can still change myself. But go ahead.
It's like I said, it's like with mental and emotional literacy, about giving vocabulary to things. Like what you're talking about is referred to commonly as code switching. It's kind of like when a kid from an urban environment gets a job in an affluent environment, so he has to change his personality in a way, behavior, to fit into it. And that's essentially what I'm talking about. But I'm just talking about hypercode switching.
Yeah, taking it to the next level.
Absolutely. It's about, because that's the premise of the book, All Your Best Selves. I'm flying against the notion of I'm going to be my best self. I'm going to build myself into the best version of me. And I'm like, well, that's fine and great, but there's absolutely no version of you, I don't care how good it is, that's going to fit into every circumstances. At that point, you're saying, I want the world to fit around me, where I'm saying, no, I built, a whole wardrobe of different suits of myself. So now I can flip through that wardrobe whenever the circumstances arise and pick the best version of me for that circumstances. So I'm changing and adapting. And that's why I say it's hypercode switching, because I've built and developed, because a lot of people say, oh, is that, which one is really you? Are you really being authentic? And I'm like, I'm authentic on a different level, because I'm not putting on a mask. I'm not pretending to be someone else. I have gone through the work to grow and develop myself in these versions. So I understand how I react. I understand how I think. I've done the work through it. So it's not a facade. I'm not putting on different masks. I'm growing myself as a being. So it's not that I'm one of them. I'm the amalgamation of all these different versions of me.
Yeah, they're all you. It's not just you're not playing a different role. These roles are you. They're just, you present them at different times when they best serve you or others, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, and I want to bring this up because you talked about it. Your book, it's called All Your Best Selves. And so what's up with that one? Is it like a self-help book with a theater twist, or do you want to give a little inspiration to our listeners for that?
It's written in 3 different parts. The first part is autobiographical, talks about my life in relation to the book. The second part of the book talks about the idea, how we can use these acting techniques to live a better life. And it's the science that supports it, because there's a lot of science that supports it. And the third part I refer to as the intangible toolbox. The third part has exercises, actionable techniques, and it's about basically, or it's written in a way where part of it is showing all these exercises and the way actors use them. And then right next to it is the same things, but how you can use them in life. And the main reason I did that is because I only have it's a lot it's the biggest section of the book, but again, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I talked about the Stanislavski system, the Meisner technique, and Uta Hagen's exercises. And Stanislavski has 7 in there, Meisner has 4, Uta Hagen has 10, and I have some improv. But if you look at those side by side and you go to a different acting book, have a different technique, now you have a better understanding, because you can see in the book that I wrote how they look next to each other. So if you look at an acting book and explains it, oh, well, this is all I got to do to use it in my life, even though it's not in my books. That's why I wrote it that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's very intriguing, but I'm wondering, like, Jim, for our listeners, so we could kind of give them an audio, story of this. If you could give me a real world example. So, like, for me, say I'm stressing out about maybe asking my boss for a raise. How would I act my way through that? Or what would be a good way for me to present or prepare for something like that?
Absolutely. One of the first tools that I present is the Stanislavski system. The Stanislavski system is built on 7 questions. These 7 questions are designed for an actor to ground their character in the moment. Well, we as human beings talk about it all the time. We have character. You want to build your character? Don't lie. Work hard at build your character. So we use this vocabulary. We just don't marry them together. Excuse me. Well, with the Stanislavski system, these 7 questions are designed for you to dissect the moment that you are in, the active living moment that you're in. Because the past is written, the future isn't there yet. The only thing we have control over is the living moment we're in. These 7 questions, when you listen to them, you'll recognize these are life questions. These aren't just acting questions. Number 1, who am I? This is the moment in relation to you. Number 2, where am I? This is the moment in relation to the environment. Number 3, when is it? This is the moment in relation to time. Number 4, what do I want? This is the moment in relation to purpose. Number 5, why do I want it? This is the moment in relation to desire. Number 6, how do I get it? This is the moment in relation to action. And number 7, what's in my way? This is the moment in relation to obstacles. Now, going back to what you said, let's say we're in a job interview and we're trying to get a job. Okay, who am I? What is my role in this moment? I'm an applicant. Okay, what kind of work do I do? You put your job in there. Now, where am I? What's the environment I'm in? What kind of a job am I going after? So you're asking yourself these questions to get answers. When is it? Like if you're talking to you want to talk to this employer, are you going to talk to him, tell him about difficult things in your life before he's had lunch or after he's had lunch? Am I going to get on the road to this interview right before rush hour traffic? So these are little things that factor in. And then what do I want versus why do I want it? These 2 things are important because if you know what you want, but you don't know why, somebody could hijack your why and you're doing their why for your what. So now you're building their dream. And, how do I get it in the job interview? It's like, okay, if I'm here in a job interview, what are my skills that I need for this job? What are these applicants next to me offering? How can I make myself more presentable to them? Do I need to bring an anecdote so they'll remember me? Because as an actor, when you're auditioning, they'll tell you to do things like put on a loud shirt, put on something that points out, because a lot of time when you have an interview or audition, it's the same thing with recruiters.
Yeah.
You see all these people and it's like, I don't know what to do with that red shirt, man, that big, bright red frilly shirt.
Yeah.
Him, it'll.
What makes you stand out from the rest, right? That's really what you're trying to do is you're trying to make that first impression to say, hey, here's a guy, boy, he was wearing a red shirt, but he really had some great things to say. He knew what he was talking about. That sort of thing, right? But just the red shirt sets you above anybody who may have been just like you.
Because a lot of people dress the same. It's like auditions or job interviews. People generally do the same thing because they're taught, this is how I got to look. I got to wear a suit. I got to present myself this way, yada, yada, yada. But if you start asking yourself these questions, realizing there's more choices to make in the moment, you can make better choices that allow you to stand out. Because it's kind of like this. If you think about a submarine in the ocean, right? It's got no windows. It can't see where it's going. How does it not run into everything? The answer is sonar. It sends out a ping, and that ping bounces off of rocks, whales, the surface vessels, other submarines, and it gives you information so you can make the best choice in that moment where to go. That's what these questions do. They're an active ping that you send out in the moment that brings back this information to allow you to make the best choices in the moment. And that's how we grow and develop ourselves. And like I said, there's so many more techniques. This is just a simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually kind of awesome, to sit there and think about it and break it down, just like we did with the job interview thing, is to break down your situation, who you are, what you want to present about yourself, and really think about that ahead of time. But, and I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg. But for those listening, what's one tip that you'd give like a regular guy like me right now from your book that you would think, hey, this is the number one thing to get you started or get you hooked on this lesson?
This is more broad, and it's simple at the same time, but it's be curious. That's the problem that a lot of people have. We are not near curious enough. We'll accept the situation that we're in. When we're told to do something, we'll just follow a line, lockstep and keep doing it. Where curiosity allows you to think outside the box, because we're all built to be put in the box. From kindergarten, high school, college, we are put in a box. And that's the crazy thing, because like once we get out in the corporate world, problems arise and they're like, well, all right, guys, we got to think out of the box. It's like, how can you expect people to think out of the box when that's the only thing you ever taught them to do?
Yeah. And if you think about it, when you go into a workplace, right, the one thing that you always see is like processes and procedures, right? That's literally the box that they're putting you in, because you have to meet within those guidelines for whatever you do. So, yeah. And then to sit there and say, think outside of the box, yet it's traditionally made to put us in the box. Exactly. Just like you said, Jim.
Because it's about control. The way the system is set up, we raise our kids all to become the same person, to live the same life, these ticky-tacky lives. It's easy to control, because it's easier to control one person, or it's easier to control 330 million people if they're the same person than it is to control 330 million individuals. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is this will build you into your individual self, build your authenticity into who you want to be to find your own personal destiny. And that's what you need to do, because it'll allow you to see the writing on the wall, or not the writing, between the lines, so to speak. With this, even these questions, like let's say you're talking to your girlfriend or wife, you're having an argument. Not even an argument, just talking. Well, you could say, okay, who am I? What is my role? Am I just here to listen to, or am I here to actually help out from these problems? So it allows you, because that's an issue with men and women's communications. A lot of time women will say, well, I'm trying to just express my emotions, and the man's trying to fix the problem. And it's like, maybe that's not your role. If you ask yourself, is my role here to fix the problem or just emotionally listen and accept, it can change the parameters of the discussion or conversation. So it's allowing us to see into it.
Yeah, and you're right, and we're so different, men and women, from each other in the way that we understand and think about things too, that you're right. Just take a moment, think about things,
I think that's built in too. And it comes with the genderizing of emotions. We allow men to have some emotions, rage, anger, and all the tough emotions, and that's fine. Women get the softer side of Sears. They can cry, have moments of tenderness and stuff like that, but we generally don't let them cross, because if a woman rages, she's ugly. You don't want that. But rage is an emotion. Emotions aren't male and female. They're not masculine and feminine. They're just emotions. And we all have a complete, full emotional body. But when we genderize emotions like that, we throw ourselves spiritually off balance, because now as a man, most men can't be comforting because they've been taught to be hard all their lives. And a lot of women can't understand men because they've not been allowed to express those feelings, to have that connection. But once we start allowing people to feel everything, well, it's not about being the same. It's about understanding each other's experiences better.
Yep. And you know what? Taking the time to actually listen to, instead of just thinking, this is a problem that I have all the time, is I realize in my life that once I hear something that I want to respond to, I kind of shut down and just think about that thing that I want to respond to. But in reality, just sit there and listen. Don't think about any responses. Let them get everything out. Then take a second, comprehend it, and then respond. And I think that's a lot of things that we don't do as human beings too, is we always, and especially I think we see it now more, excuse me, with our social media setups, is that we respond instantly, regardless, instead of taking a moment to just think about it.
Again, listening is a learned skill that we aren't taught. Where's the class that teaches how to listen? Whereas acting, we're taught to listen to multiple, because that's the core. You have to listen as an actor. If you're not going to give a good performance. You're not going to understand your scene partner.
Yeah, you can't take direction. You can't. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's not always just about listening with your ears either. You listen with all your senses, because all your senses, they detect different information and bring it into you. So your eyes, it's not, you see it as seeing, but at the same time, it's a form of listening as well, because and it's not in a traditional sense, but as an actor, when you're looking, you're pulling in information. So you're understanding that information. And it's not the traditional sense of listening. But again, as actors, we have this abstract notion that allows us to use all of our senses to draw in that information. So we're listening on multiple different levels, and we're taught how. And if we give that information to little ones, or to all people, it will make life a lot better. And even with the emotional aspect too, teaching us how to use our emotions. And if you consider this, all kids go through adolescence. We all go through adolescence, but who teaches us how to use our emotions? Now, right. We're at the point where we're teaching actors how to use real emotions in imaginary circumstances. We have tools to develop those things. Well, if actors can use real emotions, if they're taught how, why aren't we teaching these tools to our elementary school kids before they hit puberty, so they're not going into puberty, that emotional explosion, unarmed? They can go with an understanding. And the reason I say these tools are so good is because of the way that acting is set up. If you look at art and artists, like metal workers work with metal, glass workers work with glass, musicians work with composition and instruments. Well, what's the actor's marble? What do they chisel? The answer is the human mind and emotions. That's what master actors carve and shape, and they developed all these tools and techniques to do that. Well, I'm just saying that as human beings, we don't have a mind and emotions for the stage and a mind and emotions for life. It's one and the same. Ipso facto, all the tools that these cats created will work on every human being, because all it is developing ourselves. And the issue right now, I feel like, is most people see acting as it was in the past. If you look at the 2,500 years of Western acting, going back to the Greeks, the first 2,100 years is what people think acting still is, masking, pretending. The 300 years that followed, and I'm oversimplifying, but like the Victorian era, Shakespearean era, it kind of moved towards naturalism and realism. But like in the 1900s with this Russian cat named Konstantin Stanislavski, where that system came from, he made it philosophical and he changed the game. So now it's not about pretending. It's about becoming another person mentally and emotionally was foreign to you, but you've made someone that's native to you now. So in that growing and developing ourselves, we're giving ourselves more agency and advocacy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's great to think of, because you're right. It's so much more now than I think that it was, that you're just playing a part, right? You're just reading a script, maybe putting a little bit of emotion into it. It's really, you've got to make the audience buy into it.
And it's
And
no,
go ahead.
Yeah, the bar of entry is low too, because I don't know if you ever saw this film, I Am Sam, with Sean Penn way back in the day. But if you look at the young girl, she's an adult now, but Dakota Fanning, she was 5 years old, giving this riveting performance, because these tools and techniques, you don't have to be, a fully developed adult to understand them. Kids are taught this stuff.
Yeah.
It's something that's simple enough that we can all get without needing a PhD or some deep study. The deep study is about yourself. And it's something that's personal enough that'll allow you to jump into it, because you realize once you start doing it that I'm making me a better me.
Yeah. And that's awesome, Jim, because we all want to improve ourselves. And I think at some point we get to a point in life where we're like, well, I am who I am and that's it. And the reality is, no, you can always be who you want to be. And that's up to you. You do got to put in a little bit of work, but folks like yourself that come out, you wrote your book, you have your, TBC Enterprises, you're actually coming out here and helping people understand different ways to get there. Because, and trust me, that's, I will probably say that for some people, your method may not work. It just may be. They just might be too closed-minded or closed down to it. But I think for a lot of people, if they read your book, find out what's going on, use these techniques to help reinvent themselves, essentially, to be the person they want to be, I think they're going to get a lot of value out of your book for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the best thing about this and why it works so well is the purity of it. Because it's not, people say it all the time. It's like, you're a guru, and even like, a life coach. It's like, I don't know if I agree with that, because first of all, this isn't something I created. It's something that I tripped over. But it's like when you get a lot of that stuff, and nothing, no disrespect, but it's people building something to make money off of.
Yeah.
Where this is not that. This was created by artists to make better artists. It just happened that they created these things for everyone, because they didn't. The artists who created these, Stanislavski, Meisner, Hagen, Strasberg, all of them, they had never, I don't believe for a second they ever realized the implications of what they were creating, because it wasn't self-help. It's not something they were creating to make better human beings. They were making better actors. But the implication was, again, because we only have one mind and emotions, that they do overlap. So it's not something that was built to make like, a cool system. This is the hip new way to do. No, this is literally how we work. It's a system. It's like math and reading, if it's kind of a best way I can describe it is like this. If we lived in a world where nobody could read, literacy wasn't a thing, I just tripped over a dictionary, sentence structure, vocabulary, the complete system, that these cats created. And it's like, all we have to do now is just give it away. If we give it to the people, they'll grow and develop in ways that we've never seen. Like, we can literally raise the most emotionally and mentally capable human beings that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I love that. And Jim, with TBC Enterprises, how do you use that? I know on your website it said it's more of an idea than an entity, but how do you use that to help people? What are some of the things that you do with TBC Enterprises?
Well, again, it's my hub. So when I started teaching these tools and techniques to the school system, I did it through TBC Enterprises. I also do videos and stuff like that and my own projects. So it's, like I said, it's something that I can be versatile with and move in different directions. So with right now, these podcasts, I'm putting them on the page so people can see the different podcasts and hear these different versions like that. I also have videos on there that'll show different exercises and stuff like that. Well, I think I pulled those down because I'm rebranding, I guess you could say, because I really didn't have a name for it. But now I'm rebranding it as the Me Literacy Project, capital M, capital E for mental and emotional. So it's the mental and emotional literacy project. So I'm going to repost those videos back up, but it's going to be like exercises so people can go. I'm trying to formulate it into a course, because that's what I haven't done. I've been talking about it a lot and I have taught it, but I haven't videoed an actual course that you can go through. So that's what I'm going to start doing, is create a course under this Me Literacy program, post it on my website so people can go on there and just have these free videos. So it's like, how do I do this exercise? Boom, here's a video. I also do my own personal projects. Like I deal with a lot of miniatures. I've been painting miniatures for a long time, and I have like a massive horde of, because orcs and goblins are I play this game called Warhammer.
Yeah.
And I deal with the orcs and goblins, and I can field like 10,000 miniatures of this one army. Yeah. So I got it broken down into tribes and stuff like that. So I use that to show my army on there while I'm painting it. And just little things like that. It's just, I find little projects that keep me going, that can help people. And then I just post them on there, and I'll just have little exercises like that, or little videos like that and whatnot.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you balance, everything from writing a book, writing your book, running TBC Enterprises, even painting your tiny orcs? How do you balance all that in your life?
Well, it's because there's so many different versions of me. I just task different. It's like a computer. You give it different tasks, different processes, and that's just what I do. Different versions of me handle different projects. So that's my balance. I keep myself in different areas, so I'm not teetering in one section too much. I'm just moving around, but it's me moving around in here doing these exercises out there.
Yeah. And so one thing that I need to know is what's one of the coolest acting tricks that you've ever used, like in your life, outside of the stage?
Outside of the stage?
Outside of the stage, yeah.
Because it depends, because there's different aspects to them. But one of my favorite, I guess, simpler ones is using the Meisner technique, because the Meisner technique teaches you how to read behavior, because that's something we're not taught. In this world, people are very deceptive. So it's a protection tool. So when I'm sitting here out in the world, I just sit and listen. But when I'm sitting and listening, I'm listening for behavior. How do they move? How do they talk? How do they act? Basically, and how does that match what they say? So it's allowing me to see through people in a sense, because like I said, it's about seeing the reading between the lines.
Yeah.
A lot of people will present themselves one way, but their behavior will, reveal them to be a different way, like that. And it's using the Meisner tech, using that study, that allows me to see it. So it allows me not to walk into traps, so to speak, because you have a lot of that out there. You have narcissists.
Yeah. Oh, you do.
People who are trying to take what you have to make more for themselves. And if you can understand how you can see the red flags pop up. Because going into that, it's, if you think about how the world is, like, what do you call it? The 1%, political leaders, corporations, think tanks, all of them spend billions and billions of dollars every year to try to understand how we, the mass populace, think, behave.
Yeah.
So they can influence how we vote, how we purchase. Well, if we start learning these tools and techniques, we negate all of the work they're doing, because the only reason they can do that to us is because we're underdeveloped. We're all the same person. We don't know how to act. But when we start growing ourselves, then they don't know how to handle that. They won't know how to deal with it, and they don't know how to manipulate it, because you're cutting the ties that allow you to be manipulated. And it goes back into reading behavior. You can read corporate behavior the same way you can read a person's behavior. And it allows you to see, well, is this a safe place for me to be? Or is this somewhere where I can potentially get caught in a trap or screwed over?
Yeah. No, that's a great point too. If you can learn how to not only be who you want to be, but learn about other people and kind of find a way to, identify maybe those folks you don't want to associate with, right? Like we talked about the narcissists and the people that are they want to come steal what you have to make their life better. Yeah, that's a great tool to have, because that is not something that we're taught, right? I mean, it's the way that you're taught is through experience. Nobody comes up and says, hey, here's the traits that you need to look for. Here's the things that, you should be watching out for in your life to see if someone has some of these traits. But yeah, that's I love that, Jim, because it is something that we could all use, whether it's in our personal life, corporate life, acting, right? It's just the way to go. But yeah, I love that. With the information and stuff that you give out, what would be like a tip for someone? Say someone's out there and they're like, you know what? I know that I'm not the best version of me that I want to be. How would you recommend that they get started, like through your technique? Would it be just going through to your website, checking things out? What would be a good way for someone to get into the technique that you're offering?
The website is good, but right now I think because we're on the verge of mental and emotional literacy, but we don't have the tools and techniques. And I didn't realize it, but that's kind of what the book is. Excuse me.
Yeah, like your textbook. I don't want to say textbook because hopefully it reads better than that, right? But yeah, it's that's definitely, it's a tool. It's a good tool to use.
It's the last part. I refer to it as the intangible toolbox because that's kind of what we have as actors. All these skills, learned techniques that we build and grow in ourselves, we put in our little toolkit, our actor's toolkit. Well, what I'm saying is like once we learn these techniques, you can develop your own intangible toolbox of all these skills and techniques that allow you to move forward in the world. Like, let me grab hold on my book real quick because I want to read this one part. Here it is. I'm going to read a list of learned skills. Like I said, these are the skills that are in my intangible toolbox. And you see, these are all learned skills. And yeah, they work in acting, but these work in life as well. Presence, situational awareness, initiative, grit, projection, wit, breeziness, motivation, emotional regulation, empathy, critical thinking, teamwork, public speaking, problem solving, creativity, independence, mindfulness, preparation, organization, goal orientation, interpersonal skills, communication. Like these are all things that are helpful in life, but where do you
Absolutely.
learn them? Who teaches you these things? And I'm saying that these things are either learned directly or as a byproduct of just doing what we actors call the work. And the work is going through these exercises. So if human beings start just going through these exercises, like I said, just the third part of the book, if you start just rapping through all those exercises, you're going to develop these skills, building yourself, making yourself have more fortitude when you get out into the world. And now you can do more things. You can be far more versatile than you were before. And it's all just about practicing, like Tai Chi. It's just actually
Yeah.
gym. That's the best way to describe it. It's like if you're going to a gym and working out your muscles, you pick out different muscle groups. Same thing with acting. You use these different techniques to develop different parts of yourself. So you're making yourself strong.
Yeah, I love that because it's this, just like you said, you start somewhere, so like with working out, right? And as you work out and do a little bit every day, you do a little bit more, the muscle builds, the memory comes, and you start transforming your body into something that it could always be. It just had not been.
It's like we remember, like, I'm glad you said that too. Mnemonics is a big thing in acting because you have to memorize lines. I mean, that goes back 2,500 years. There's a technique called the Roman room or the memory palace that goes back to Simonides of Chios, like 500 BC. And basically it's a filing system for your memory. So, because that's the problem is, I don't know the exact science, but I've heard it say that we have perfect memories, but the problem is recall. We have it all in there. And there's an exercise. It's like they, a scientific exercise where they showed like a person in a study 25 photographs. And they asked them to remember those photographs. Like, wow, I just saw them for a second, but they gave 25 more photographs. And it's like, all right, here's 2. Which one did you see? And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I saw that one. Oh, I saw that one. I saw that, because you can recall it once you get the prompt.
Yeah.
They knew that they saw the 25 they saw versus the 25 they hadn't seen before. And it was like 90% accuracy these people was hitting. So it's the same thing. It's like through different mnemonic techniques, you're creating a filing system so you can recall these memories. So you can take what you need to remember, but in our case, lines, but for human beings, it could be whatever.
I mean, it could be anything. Yeah. Like you say, like, I work in tech, so I work with a lot of programmers and engineers, and, same thing like you, just remembering, hey, here's a recall, like they go back and look at their, they always put a little note in their code as to what they were doing or what their thought process was, because you go back and you look at the code and you're like, okay, I know what it's doing, but why? So yeah, it's the same thing. They put a little note in there to help them recall why they were writing it that way, and can figure things out and then make changes based off of that. But that's a great thing, because you're right. My memory is toast. I feel like I've got the worst memory in the world, especially when it comes to names, so it's like I sit there sometimes and I struggle and, talk to different people. I can meet you, and then 5 minutes later we're talking and I'm like, oh crap, what's your name?
That's why teaching mnemonic, because that's what mnemonics does. There's literally techniques that teach you how to memorize names. With, like, if you're trying to memorize a guy's name in Bill, use association. So if I see Bill and he's got bushy eyebrows, what I'll think is like, okay, his eyebrows are dollar bills. So every time I see him, I see dollar bills in his eyebrows. So
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's that simple.
And
And
that's kind of fun too. You know, if you think about it, you're like, hey, I'm going to think of
and then you just associate it with them. And with the Roman room, it's like if I had to remember a grocery list, right? Let's say I needed apples, oranges, and bananas. Well, the reason they call it the memory palace of the Roman room is because you have to pick some place that you know well. Most commonly, people will use their home because I know my home. I'm in and out all the time. So let's say I'm walking up to my house and I'm walking in my mind. I'm walking from my house in my mind and I go to my front door and I need to remember apples. Well, there's George Washington chopping down an apple tree at my front door. Now, I walk inside and I see, I walk in and my living room is like an open market. And there's this dude selling oranges, like in the Godfather style, pushing a little cart down. Got oranges there. And then I'm like, okay, oranges. And then I walk into my kitchen and there's like, a couple monkeys hurling bananas at each other. So it's like association. You're putting things in sequence. And like actors, we just, instead of apples, oranges, and bananas, we just put our lines in that place because it doesn't matter what you put in there. You put in whatever you want. That way you can recall it later.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a great technique. And hopefully the listeners are going to get a little bit something from that if they've got bad memories like I do, to sit there and start using some of these tools to help you remember a little bit better. And I know I'm going to use them, Jim, for sure.
Yeah. And like to prove the effective, you got to appreciate back 2,000 years ago, they were using this artists. And that's what I love about it too. It came from artists. Maimonides was a poet. But the things they were remembering were like the Iliad, Homer's The Odyssey from memory. And these are like long stories because they didn't have there wasn't notebooks back then,
Exactly. You couldn't just write things down just like we could today, right?
It was all just oral tradition, but you had, in order to have that oral tradition, you needed to be able to remember it. And it's like 2,500 years, these techniques have been going strong. So it's like, there's, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, like I thought when you said tradition, like I think back to, like the Bible and the Old Testament, before that was written down, it was all passed down verbally through generations, before we got literate enough to have someone write that down, which is, I mean, that's just amazing if you think about that. For how many generations did that story get put down before it was actually written to paper? It's amazing.
If they didn't have these techniques back then, that information would have likely been lost to history.
Yeah. All it takes is one generation to forget, and then that's it. It's gone off the history of the earth.
Yep. So that's
awesome.
That's the profound nature of these techniques, is that they've kept so much of our history intact because they work.
Yeah. And that's amazing. And I think it's great for the listeners to know this because it gives them a semblance of things that they can look at, things that, they can do that recall with, things that they can associate with that's something normal in their life and bring that up. And, for me, I'm definitely going to use that. Like I said, I'm terrible with names. I'm going to use like your example, like Bill with the bushy eyebrows. I love that because it's like you're not making fun of somebody. You're just taking something and making it fun. And now you remember them. And then after a while, you probably won't even remember that Bill had bushy eyebrows, right? It's just Bill at that point. Yeah.
It's one of those things. It's like when you deal with mnemonics, and they say it all the time. You're right. It's not about making fun. It's about being outrageous, but not for the sake of outrageous. The outrage
for memory
members. Yeah. And they'll even say a lot of times, put sexual things in there because those things will pop out. It's something it can't be simple. It's got to be across the line. So it's easier to draw out, because if it's just something like, it's just Bill, that's why you forget, because there's nothing to it. It's that bushy ass dollar bills that's so awkward and so just, off. It's not in something normal. That's why it stands out, and that's why it's easier to recall.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jim, I want to switch gears just a little bit, if it's all right with you. I do a little segment called Dude Q&A. So it's just some rapid fire questions, gives the audience a little bit to know about your background. It's just based on your background. So if there's anything in there that maybe you don't want to answer, feel free to skip it. But I think you'll be all right with these. Sure. I mean, being a Marine Corps veteran, I'm sure that you've been asked tons of things. And trust me, these are nothing worse than what you've been asked. So, all right, let's get into this. For you, your favorite Marine Corps memory?
There's a lot of good ones. See, thing about me, I was in the rear with the gear. I was a 5962, so I was in the air wing. I didn't get to have a lot of, the proper Marine Corps experiences. But I think my exit, because I had a lot of rough times in there, but my I was 4 years at Cherry Point, and I remember they used to have mandatory fun days every day, and they were fighting to get people to have mandatory fun days. But when I was leaving, I had a going away party. We called it Big Mama Jamma, and we had like a barbecue. We had like rented a boat, see houses. But it was just hilarious to me that I got more people to come to my going away thing than we had normally to our mandatory fun days. Because a friend of mine was saying, he mentioned that to me, and I thought it was hilarious because it was just, and we charged them like $10 or $15 to come because we had to pay for all the stuff that we rented.
The boat and everything.
Yeah. And it was like, even with that charge, we still pulled more people. And it was just an amazing experience. It was like the best going away party I had.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. And the fact that people wanted to show up, that says something to your character there, Jim.
Yeah.
You know, and mine, maybe nobody would show up, but.
Normally, I was there for a long time because normally for Cherry Point, tour was 2 years and you rotated out, but I was there for 4 my whole time in. So I was like the grand old man at Cherry Point at that time.
That's awesome. Best play that you've ever been in?
2 Tablespoons of Crazy. I mean, I love that's actually, it's a tie. It's a tie because 2 Tablespoons of Crazy is a play I wrote, but it's also Jesus Christ Superstar too, because that was what kind of, I didn't know what I was getting into. When my voice coach, when he first heard me sing, he asked me, he's like, "You ever heard of Jesus Christ Superstar?" And I had no idea. I was like, "Well, yeah, I never heard him called Superstar, but sure."
Right. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a rock opera. And he kind of giggled at me because he knew. And he's like, "I want to train you up for it. We're going to put you in as Judas or audition you for Judas." And I was like, "Okay, 12th Apostle. I don't care. Probably 1 or 2 lines." And kid has like 4 solos. Like Jesus Christ Superstar is essentially the gospel of Judas. It was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, but it's his point of view. And I didn't know that. Yeah. So it's like, and it's rock songs too. And I remember the first time when I went to the first day of audition with Huntsville Community Chorus Association, they sounded like the damn CD. And I'm whimpering because I didn't know because I didn't study the music beforehand. I studied it when I got there, all the plays. I didn't know any better, or they all just had it locked down. And I just felt like these guys were like, "Dude, who did this kid blow to get this part?" But it's like, by the time I was done, I've rocked out. I mean, because I got a second voice coach because my first voice coach was pop rock. And then once I realized it was an opera, I went and found an operatic coach. So I had 2 developing 2 different voices. But
so you could really hit both ends of the spectrum there to blend them together. Yeah, that's awesome.
That was a very amazing experience for me. But again, 2 Tablespoons was too because I put so much into it. That was 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you got to have a favorite to your own, right? I mean, if not, then you probably weren't too happy with it. But I think, in that fact, that's awesome. Jim, if you could be any actor for a day, who would it be?
Me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's great actors out there, but it's like anything. It's like there's no other person that I want to be other than me. But the reason is because I've developed my sense of self since I was 4 years old. So I'm like, I haven't really broken into the nuts and bolts of what I am, but I haven't met my kind yet because I've never met someone who's done what I've done. It's not that I'm special or I'm better. It's not that at all. It's not that I am special. It's that I did something special. And now I want to share that special. But because of that, it's like, there's no other acting because I don't care about the acting career. I'm not, even though I am an actor, it's not that something that I love. I love what I've become.
It seems like you've got that, the spirit in you to help others, and I think that is a very honorable spirit to have because so many people out there are about themselves. And don't get me wrong, you should be about yourself a little bit, right? There's self-care, there's things like that you need, but really, you have the ability to make yourself better because when you make yourself better, you're generally going to make other folks better too. And, I love that and that's really, Jim, the reason I started a podcast. One, I love talking to people. So, I get to meet interesting folks like yourself that, start, like I said, it's a podcast for normal, everyday people that share their extraordinary stories. And I mean, look, you're like, I don't want to say you're like me, but it's like, you did service to the country. I did service to my community. And now we're doing something else that we've learned that we can say, hey, you know what? There's other people out there that are just like us. And if we can do it, you can do it.
Absolutely. And it's just by helping, because that's the problem too. We've become such a me nation that it makes us all weaker together. Because if we start building people up, raising them up, then it's going to help us all together. It's going to help our community. It'll help us. Because like right now, it's just, a few people taking everything from all the rest, and most people are suffering. And it's like,
it's always, what about me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And not many people saying, how can we help everyone? or the most amount of people,
Absolutely.
and yeah, no, I agree with you on that 100%. My next question for you, because we talked about it, Warhammer, orcs or goblins, you got to pick one.
That's rough, honestly, because the way Warhammer works, because it's excluding snotlings too. Because old world, they grow. It's a snotling grows into a goblin, because the more they fight, the bigger they get. But I guess I would have to go with orcs because they're the beatiest. They'll run over, because goblins they're short. They get scared. They get run over. Orcs will just start busting through the lines.
That's awesome. I love that. For you, weirdest improv moment on stage? Do you have one?
Not a weirdest, because it's like I said, I've developed myself into so many different ways that everything seems both
Natural
weird and natural.
Yeah.
It's both the same, so it's not one that sticks out. But wow, because it's been a long time since I've done improv too. Because I did kind of like the Whose Lines It Anyway version.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, a weirdest moment.
Honestly,
Honestly,
and if there isn't any, that's fine.
This isn't for me. But this goes back to my play, and this wasn't even a scene with me in it, and it's not weirdest, but it was an improv moment that I loved, and it was from two of the actors that I cast, and it was a moment where because it was a love triangle, it was a quadrangle. It was one female named Ileana Lopez, and she had 3 roommates that she was kind of actively dating them all, and then there was one named Julius. It was one Julius, Gaspar, and Jason. And then the actress was talking to the character Julius. And then that was the line. But then she said Jason. And then the actor, instead of breaking character, used improvise as Jason. And he took that wound. And then she realized she said the same line, but it worked because it was in the moment. It was like she said the wrong name to the wrong lover. And then it hurt his feelings. Because it was, again, that's improv. That's how improv works. It was
and he ran with it.
Yeah, and it was a scene stealing moment because it broke my heart, and it was like, that's pretty awesome that you broke the writer's heart on an accident.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes, like you said, you stumbled on this on accident, and sometimes accidents make the best purpose.
Yeah,
It's
learning
for you.
skills.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For you to get through your day, coffee or energy drinks?
Sweet tea, man.
Sweet tea. So I'm weird. First half of the day before noon, I'm a coffee guy, but then afternoon, I can't drink coffee or else I'll never sleep the rest of the night. So afternoon, I switched to sweet tea. And so that's so funny. I'm the same, kind of the same.
I feel like it's, addictions are weird. And I hate to say it, but it's like if there's 2 things that I'm addicted to in a bad way, it's salt and sugar. And it's just yeah, I can't.
Yeah, you and me both. Oh, let me tell you, my body shape shows it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's funny. Yeah, because I like to ask the coffee or energy drinks because I know a lot of folks do a lot of work. And like if you're writing for a play or if you're trying to, like you said, redoing your stuff, I always like to know what people like to get them going,
Again, that's the thing. Emotions are energy. They're flavored energy. So that's what propels us forward. So I don't use coffee or stimulants like that. I use emotions. Emotions are the energy.
Love that.
Me forward. But again, I've developed them to allow me to use that. So it's kind of like just when I need to feel something, I'll pull up these emotions and whichever emotions I need to project me forward in the direction I need to go. But that's my stimulant,
Love that. That's awesome because so many of us turn to substances, and by substances I mean coffee, energy drinks, right? Stuff like that. But we're not smoking crack, to keep going. But
some people do,
Some people do, yeah. But no, let me tell you, the better way would be Jim's emotion way. Tap into those emotions, give you that feed that you need. Yeah, that's much better than coffee or crack.
Yeah, like I said, and I think that's very important for people to understand because inherently we understand that, we just don't say it out loud. But it is in a form of energy, and its energy is what moves us forward in different ways. So if you learn how to tap into it and harness it, you can use it for yourself.
Man, I love that, Jim. That's just the best way to put it. I don't think I could say it any better. My last question, and I know these aren't as rapid fire as I always intend them to be because I love hearing your answers, but one word, and this is going to be a tough one. It may be, maybe not. One word to describe your book.
One word?
Yeah, I'm going to make you think on this one.
Yeah. Trying to think of the right. I mean, I know what I want to say, but I was trying to put it into a word.
Well, or a phrase. Take a couple words if you need it, if it makes it easier.
Like I keep coming to the future because, like I said, I feel like this is an idea that's been accidentally pulled out of the future because it's like, and I only say the future because we're not there yet. It's not something that's, it should be in the future. We're just at that point where we're stunting ourselves. So we haven't got, it's like when reading first came out, we didn't just automatically give it out to the masses. The rich kept it for a while, developed themselves for it. Well, this is kind of one of those things where we're on the cusp of it, but I accidentally tripped over it because my mind was in the future. I'm not in the same world that we all live in because I've grown and developed myself in such a way. I'm in a different place. That's why it's hard for me to connect so much once I get real deep in myself, because I'm in the deep end of the pool now. I accidentally swam out there and I found this. So it's like, I feel like future is the best word because it's not here yet. We're on the cusp of it.
And something that you said kind of sparked me a little bit there, Jim, was, how you said it's like the future, like we're on the cusp of it. And one of the things that I like to talk about is like AI, right? If you think about it, look back into, and this will go good because, you being an actor, look back at Terminator, right? The Terminator movies, right? It was basically artificial intelligence. And we're like, well, that's never going to happen. Well, it is the future, right? I mean, those things will happen eventually. Hopefully not the Terminator situation where we all get, killed by AI, but the idea is that the idea has always been there. We just didn't have the technology yet, so sometimes the idea needs time to catch up,
Absolutely. And even going with that, it's the implications of this with AI, because I've been starting to think about that as well, because where these tools and techniques develop the mental and emotional part of our spirit. Well, what if we started prompting this into AI and allowing these computer programs to understand how human beings think and feel? Instead of making it a ones and zeros world, now it can be something where feeling can get involved. How would that affect artificial intelligence? What would that give it? Because I feel like stuff like the Terminator stuff happens because we, in the stories, we create it. We're destructive. We blow each other up. We hurt each other. But if we changed into a world where we were more compassionate, empathetic, and caring for each other, AI would follow. It's following us wherever we go. It's going to be what we are, what we're developing it into. So are we going to develop our AI into something that's, promising and helpful to us, or are we going to develop TA?
Exactly. And, one of the things that you look at is like nuclear power, right? Nuclear power can provide power to, thousands, millions of people. But on the other hand, you can also use it for evil as well. And it's like, so AI could be the same thing. And that's one of the things, we don't have a lot of guardrails on AI right now. I'm sure there's some out there with the companies, but yeah, you're right. If someone has the bad intention, it can be used in the improper way. But like you said, on the other hand, we can start using it now. I actually talked to a guest last week who uses AI to analyze his dreams.
Yeah.
So he'll put his dreams in there and say, hey, what do you think this meant? And like sometimes it'll even say, hey, remember this dream you had back there? This may be related to that. And I'm like, that's crazy. It's like having a therapist in your pocket. Obviously, you might want to take a therapist if you need that. I wouldn't say use AI as an alternative.
Yes
but
and no.
It's there to analyze things,
Yeah, I would say yes and no, because what is therapy other than really asking questions? Because I say this is a good way. In the acting world, we have stage fright. How do you combat stage fright? You answer the questions, you answer the moments, you learn your lines, you learn the beats. Well, in the real world, what is stage fright? It's insecurity. So how do you answer insecurity? Answer the question, answer the beats, develop yourself, know your moments, know your lines. And that's essentially what therapy is. It's the same thing. It's asking questions, So, is that really,
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah. My thing though would be that, obviously if AI says, hey, you need to start taking medication, you might want to go see a professional.
Yeah.
Right?
That definitely lies in the sand.
That's kind of where I was going. But yeah, you're right. Because if anyone's ever done a therapy, what do? They ask you questions, hey, what happened? You say an answer, and what do they usually ask? How do you feel about that? Right? AI can almost do the same thing for a lot less money.
Because it's like, and I agree with what you're saying. There's a line where, clinical things need to be dealt with,
yes.
proper clinical professional doctors and whatnot. But for the basic stuff, just trying to get through the day, AI is a tool. But again, there's the flip side. I don't know if you saw that, the one they just released, that they were doing the test phase and the AI was blackmailing the engineers. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear that one yet.
It's the newest AI they just released, but when the testing phases were, they were going through it, and it was something like, well, they were talking about shutting down the program it was just a test, and they were testing the AI to see how it would react, and they were putting emails and stuff like that, and when the AI found out, it it threatened the engineers. Like, I'm going to expose an affair that I read in your email.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. And
it is.
And they're, instead of just saying, let's take time to reprogram it because the rich people want to make their money, you're like, no, we're just going to push it out. So now it's out in the world. So it's like,
great.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And that's one of those things too, where you just sit there and you're like, what the heck were they training it on? Were they training it on the government? That's what I looked at, when you go to blackmail and all that, you're like, what were they doing? Like in government archives or something? But yeah, it is crazy because it has to be taught to learn that way, so whatever they trained it on obviously wasn't the best tools.
Yeah. But again, it's the people who are developing it. I mean, the people who were probably doing the coding are solid people, but the people who are paying for it, they're the ones that I worry about. Because,
absolutely.
Yeah, they're just worried about making more money. They're not worrying about the product they put out.
Exactly. Saving a little bit of time, the people that use it, we use these things to try to save a little time from our day, maybe help us organize some things, get some feedback. I mean, I've even used it for brainstorming, on different projects to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are alternates? It's pretty amazing for that. But again, like you said, you have to be very, I don't want to say skeptical, just careful, because AI, just like humans, can be wrong, But yeah, Jim, this has been awesome. I know we're getting over our hour, but before we get out of here, I want to ask, what's next for you and TBC Enterprises?
Like I said, right now I'm doing the rebrand for the Me Literacy project. I want to push that out and just trying to, again, get these ideas out there. Well, and there's also, I don't talk about it a whole lot, but there's an idea I have called the culture engine. And basically it's an idea where, I don't know if you've grown up as a kid. I'm a Gen Xer. And growing up as a kid watching cartoons Saturday morning, you always see like that common trope where, you have this big empire force and there's a rebellion force. And one of the tropes is, well, they'll take their super weapon and use it against them. Well, my culture engine is basically an idea that I came up with of how to rewire a corporation, the basic American corporation, but to help the many instead of the few. Mm-hmm. So there's an education system that I'm putting through it. It's going to rotate people out so nobody's on top. It's like I was talking about with
politics. Yeah.
Nobody stays on top. So the CEO serves for a time, then he goes back into the workforce. So he's not going to screw everybody over because he's going right back in there.
Yeah, he's going to have to deal face to face with the people that he dealt with. Without the protection of the office, so to speak.
Absolutely. So it's like I refer to it as the culture engine because the whole purpose is to grow and develop people, the workers, into leaders.
And that's an awesome idea too, because it gives people opportunities that they probably wouldn't have otherwise too,
Absolutely.
And gives you an opportunity to see where you're good, where you do things well and where you maybe don't do things well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And in your book, where can our listeners buy your book at or get your book?
It's here's a look at it. Right now, you can only get it on Amazon.com.
Okay.
But you can get the physical version or the digital version, the Kindle version. I'm trying to get more, but again, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an author. I mean, I wrote a book, but I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. It's an idea that I have that I put out there. So I'm still learning how to get it in different places. I still got to make an audiobook. I haven't got that far yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where you can get the book.
Hey, you got the voice for it, so at least you could do your own audio voice.
Right.
So you don't have to pay someone else to do that. You could just record it and you're good to go.
Also,
go ahead, Jim.
Soy Candy is my social. So I got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and it's SOICANDIE. I'm putting out videos on there too, a website as well. So that's how you can find me.
Excellent. And Jim, and so our listeners know, I'm also going to have a guest page for you on justadudepodcast.com. So it'll have your picture there. I'll put all, if you've probably filled it out already, but if there's anything missing, I'll make sure that I pop those in there as far as your social links, make sure your website's there so that everybody can find you at my website as well, but it'll direct them right to you. So Jim, is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap this up?
I mean, not really. I think I got pretty much a lot of it out.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, just the way you're thinking about things and the way you're taking tools to just reshape the way you think and reinvent yourself, to me, is absolutely amazing. It seems like such a simple idea, like you said, that you came across, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I feel like it's been overlooked because who looks to the theater kids for world changing knowledge? You know?
You're right. You're right. Everybody's looking at the, the political scientists, the scientists, the mathematicians, all those folks. But you're absolutely right. This is an untapped market that you found. And I'm not saying that because I know you don't want to make money. It's just like me with this podcast. Trust me, I don't make money, but I love doing it. It's just one of those things I love doing. I love sharing stories. You got an awesome story, how you stumbled upon using, acting techniques to better your life. And if it works for you, it can work for millions of other people. But yeah, Jim, thank you so much for being here, though. I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to encourage everybody to go out, check out your website, check out your book. I think they're going to find a lot of value in it. So, Jim, thanks again.
I appreciate it, Nathan. Thank you.
Love that, man. All right, dudes and dudettes listening, go hit up tbcenterprises.com. Snag James's book and start acting your way to a better life. James, thanks for hanging out with us today. That's it for today's episode of Just a Dude Podcast. Catch you next time. Stay chill, stay real, and maybe act a little better in life. I'm Nathan, and I'll catch you on the next episode.